Find the range for the rule f of x is 1 over x if the domain is any of these four things. Now remember, domain is the input or x values, range is the output or y values. Now a sketch of f of x is 1 over x, or y equals 1 over x, for all real values may help us with this. And we know the shape of this. It goes like this and like this. And the x-axis is an asymptote, so the curve never reaches the x-axis. And the y-axis is also an asymptote. Now here we're just talking about greater than 0, so we're looking just at this part of the curve. Now remember, the range is the y or output values. One way that I use to look at it is, imagine that you're in a glass elevator here which can go up the y-axis, and that you can see infinitely in both directions. When do you actually see some curve in front of you? So when we're just looking at x is greater than 0 and we're just looking at this limb, as this elevator comes up the axis, you don't see anything until you get just immediately above the x-axis. As soon as you're above the x-axis, you'll see this curve as it comes down towards the axis. But remember, it never ever reaches the x-axis, so you won't see it when you're actually looking along the axis. After that, you'll see it all the way up, no matter how far you go up the y-axis, because this, remember, tends to the y-axis, the vertical asymptote. So our range, that's the y values, would be all real values greater than 0 as soon as we're above the axis. Now, using a similar sort of argument, if we're looking at x's reals, x is less than 0, we're looking at this limb. And we'd see the curve as we come up the axis all the way from negative infinity, but we'd stop seeing it as soon as we were looking along the axis. So this is all real values less than 0. Now here we just have 5 individual values. So the range will be 5 individual values. If we substitute in x is 1, we get 1 over 1, which is 1. Substitute in x is 2, and we get half. Substitute x is 3, and we get a third. And then we get a quarter, and then we get a fifth. Now that's absolutely fine, but personally I'd like to have those in numerical order. So I'd probably do a fifth, a quarter, a third, a half, and 1. But that's just me being OCD. It would be absolutely fine to do this. And then the natural domain, remember, for this function here, we've seen this one before, we can input any real value of x except 0. That means we're looking at both limbs of the function. Think about our glass elevator. We will see values everywhere except when we're looking along the axis. So that's all real values except 0.